Hey guys, welcome to Rosebud Thorn this week.
A little bit dark right now. Got the sun behind us.
That's okay. So we are the week of February 25th through to March 2nd. And so we are discussing the Rosebud Thorns that we have received this week.
And a couple that might have come in a little bit late last week, but that's okay.
That's okay. So we'll just get started right away here. So Jen sent in her rose. I slept well this week. I had a relaxing evening and went to bed early.
Jealous.
Right. But I feel like I haven't made much improvement in regards to my health and nutrition this week. This is likely connected to my stress levels, which we know when stress gets a little crazy, it really does impact our ability to stay focused on our health and wellness goals.
Yeah, for sure. I know that better than anybody right now. We have been a little bit high stress, just a little bit. And working through that and finding routine can definitely help with that. So we're on a personal journey of finding that routine as well.
Yeah, so we can totally relate to that. But obviously you placing it as a bud means it's coming along.
Yeah.
Right. Thorn. I feel that I was in such a good place and ready to take the next steps with my health by working out more, and then I fell flat. I want this week to be my week that I make a difference. So we like to go with the old adage of wiping that slate clean. There's nothing that says that you have to begin yesterday, tomorrow, next week. It's wipe that slate clean and really just begin again.
Yeah, and again, when I read the thorn and I read the bud from this one, seeing that those stress levels are high and feel that feeling of falling flat, sometimes internally we feel like we're having more of a struggle than we might kind of portray on the external world. So realizing that, struggle is that internal piece, and being able to work through that can start to shed light on the fact that maybe we are already starting to take steps in that journey, and maybe we're not quite where we want to be or where we expect to be at times in our lives, but realizing that even, the thought processes that go along with I'm starting to realize that my stress levels are impacting this, and now I'm starting to actively look for ways to start to deal with this stress differently, is a step in itself. So starting to celebrate the small wins to start to roll those into bigger wins, that snowball effect, when we start to realize that, even though we may be struggling, even though we are going through adversity, there we go, that we are starting to gain traction, even if it's just those thought processes of changing those thought processes to create more success.
And one of those things that you said is the expectation. And I think that where we feel that we've fallen short is when we have expectations of ourselves or expectations of others, and those expectations are not being met. But especially in stressful times, is there a way that we can maybe release some of those expectations or lower our expectations or shift what that expectation might look like? So maybe I expect myself to work out 4 or 5 days a week, and maybe the reality is right now 1 day a week is what I can manage.
Or maybe it's not even workouts, right? Maybe we always say to start with small habits, and, creating small sustainable habits creates success over time. So maybe instead of focusing on 4 or 5 days of workouts or even 1 day of workout, maybe we're just going to start with walking. Maybe we're going to start with general movement, or, taking your kid, your dog, whatever you can, take that for a walk, right? And just starting to get more general movement in, excuse me, and then building up towards getting into workouts, because again, small habits create change. And when we start to see those changes and we start to feel confident in the fact that we can sustain these new changes, these new habits, then we can start to integrate bigger habits.
The one thing that I would also encourage you to look at is we actually have a worksheet that we use with a lot of clients, and I used it with a client recently, and it's the push-pull anxiety habit worksheet. And what that means is, what is pushing you towards changing? What is pulling you away from changing? What is the anxiety around that? And what is the habit or behavior that you might need to change in order to integrate this new change that you're saying that you want to make? And when you start to actually write that down, you might surprise yourself as to what that anxiety or that fear might be stirring up. Like I did this even for myself the other day, and for myself, because I haven't worked out in months now, 2 months, I think, outside of obviously spinning 15 times a week. And I'm like, oh, I really want to get back to workouts. And I've been making excuses. Oh, I just don't have time, or I don't want to get up, or whatever. And as much as I'm dealing with exhaustion myself, I realized the other day that part of it is that I actually have a little bit of a fear around being sore again, right? I got to a point in my training where I wasn't sore all the time, and I don't want to not be able to sit on the toilet and those kinds of things. So,
She's already there from spin. No.
yeah, looking at like what is that fear that maybe is underlying, because that fear is often what will keep us stuck.
Yeah, love it.
Okay. I like this way of tackling each one
So
at a
we
time.
remember what they
Yeah,
are as
so
we
we
go.
remember. Yeah. Um, Jane says her rose eating within the plan 90% of the time. Amazing.
Yeah.
We've tried all the things. We've tried the macros, we've tried the portion sizes and the variety different ways of tracking. And now we're on to a meal plan with swap outs. And I love that this is becoming amazing for you. But so trying different foods. I love that. Trying different foods is something I love to do.
I like to eat the same foods.
I know you do. Thorn, not enough sleep this week. Sleep is creeping in.
Stress is creeping in.
Oh, stress is creeping in. Yeah, that would be weird if sleep was, right? If you're not getting enough
Sleep
of
is
it.
creeping in. Let's celebrate.
Probably because of a lack of sleep. Yeah, so often we go into overdrive when we have a lack of sleep, and we tend to make mountains out of molehills, or overanalyze things in our head that really does exacerbate that stress response.
And sleep is one of those things too. And I've personally struggled with sleep in the past. I mean, a long time ago now, I sleep like a baby. But sleep is one of those things where when we start to overanalyze it, it creates a bit of a barrier to even get into it, right? So lots of people say they struggle with sleep, and it kind of becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy, because now we're focused on the fact of like, how do I normally fall asleep? This is normally so easy. Now it's not so easy. What's different now? So as we're trying to fall into that sleep, we're overanalyzing every aspect of getting into that routine and being able to hit that sleep pattern. So releasing a little bit of the fear around it, and a little bit of the thought processes that go with how do I normally sleep, looks different for everybody. For myself, it was honestly starting to just do a mind dump before bed, writing down in a journal kind of everything that was on my brain at the time. It didn't have to make sense. Honestly, if I read through that journal now, I'm like, what the hell was I writing? But the fact was that I was getting whatever was on my mind out onto this piece of paper. And then I was able to release that and get myself out of that phase of overthinking and into that sleep phase. So again, that's one tactic you can use. There's a million though, right? We could look at breathing patterns to get to sleep. We could look at, getting into a meditative state, whatever that looks like, something that kind of slows the mind down, allows you to release the day and get present in your bed.
I would also be curious, when you're saying not enough sleep, what time are you going to bed? What time are you waking up?
Yeah.
What are the habits and routines that go into that? Just from a background knowledge standpoint, from people specifically, are we staying up too late, and what are the habits that are causing us to do so?
Well, and then what are the other external stressors that are in our life? Like, is there anything that's changed recently? Are there bigger life events happening that are creating the challenge in sleep? Because again, we're overthinking. We're thinking about all of the changes, about everything that's going on currently in our lives. And again, I love the idea of that mind dump right before bed, because it allows you to release all of those thoughts, everything that's going on, put it on paper, so your mind subconsciously knows that it's on paper. I can revisit this in the morning if I need to, but it also allows you that grace of releasing it at nighttime.
And a lot of people tend to use bedtime as the only time their brain gets downtime. And if that's the case, how does your brain process everything from the day? Like, we sit in front of a screen, or whether that be in front of a TV or cell phones or whatever that is, or we're reading a book, and we are analyzing so many other pieces throughout the day that when your head hits the pillow, all of a sudden I start to digest the entirety of the day. So I want to encourage you to start to practice other ways of digesting your day, not at sleep time, right? So can I digest my day maybe over dinner? Maybe I sit and eat my dinner and either talk with people about my day, or, think about my day and recap on it, because all of the recap coming at bedtime tends to make us anxious or have more issues with sleep.
Yeah. Again, I know I'm a broken record here, but journaling is one of the best ways for that to work too, right? You can literally recap your day. If you are somebody that is like looking to change habits, looking to create sustainable change in your life, writing down how your day went, where you might do things differently the next time around if you're in the same circumstances, things like that. Again, allows that mind to release that. So again, getting in that idea that we get to release the day as we go into our next day is important.
Mhm. Okay, so Jeanette says from Rose, exercises and stretches, yay. Her bud,
We didn't have a bud
she
this
didn't
week.
give us one. Thorn, so nothing is coming along. I'm sure there's something good coming along for
I
her.
bet you trying to eat better is coming along because that's the thorn.
Thorn is trying to eat better. Trying to eat better is a thorn for a lot of people, I think, because it means getting outside of that norm or that comfort zone of what I would normally gravitate towards or what causes that pleasure response in my body, right? Like, I'm feeling down. I need a pick me up. Oh, gravitate towards the thing that causes that feel good endorphin to come through my body. Oh, I can't gravitate towards that. Now I feel that resistance, or, like there's old patterning that kind of tends to creep in. So I do encourage you to start to look for things that do cause joy that are healthier options. And when I say healthier, we don't gravitate from chips to kale chips. That's not the way that we operate, okay? You don't go from a Big Mac to a salad. Like, what is a healthier option? Maybe I got a lettuce wrap Big Mac without the bun. Like maybe I, instead of eating a bag of chips, I had a small bowl of chips. Like, what is the healthier version? And beginning to make the process with that healthier version so that that habit becomes habit over time and not this drastic shift, because that drastic shift is not long lasting.
Yeah, and I want to outline the fact that the idea of eating better is very subjective, right? So better to somebody is, you know, it's all different. So you on your journey, regardless, again, like Kayla's saying, regardless of where you're at in your journey, eating better could just mean changing the small things, right? And it doesn't have to be, I always say like the big sexy, right? It doesn't have to be those big sexy changes right away. It's small sustainable changes over time.
Mhm.
So again, if you are somebody that your way you deal with stress is you eat a tub of fucking ice cream, that's okay. Just don't eat the tub next time.
Yeah, have a bowl.
Give yourself a bowl of ice cream and then move on with the rest of your day, right? Eating better literally just means changing habits slowly and small. Because again, and I've talked to all of my clients, I've talked to all of you guys about this on these calls before. When we are looking for change, if we try and change everything at once, if we try and make the big changes right off the bat, the likelihood of us sticking to these big changes goes downhill very quickly. So that's normal.
Yeah.
I'm saying that to everybody. That is normal. So we don't want you to change everything in one day, because if we try and change everything, then we're going to end up changing nothing. So let's stick with those small sustainable changes. Let's find successes in those, and then we can build on that.
I had a client yesterday or maybe 2 days ago. I can't remember my days.
Days are melting.
They melt together. But they were like, well, don't I need to eat more vegetables? I was like, well, I mean, we can tackle eating more vegetables when that becomes applicable. But right now, I'd like you to just like eat more food.
Yeah.
Like, let's start with food and then we'll kind of build into veggies. Like, it doesn't have to be these giant things. Like, I think when people think, oh, I need to eat better, they automatically think I need to eat my fruits and veggies, when it's like, well, I just need to maybe portion size things out or eat more whole foods in general. Like there's other things, and we can fine tune from there. While veggies and fruit are great, they're great for fiber and nutrient content, maybe they aren't necessarily great at getting your overall energy levels up. So
yeah. And the last thing I do want to say about eating and eating better, and I promise as your coaches that we will not steer you wrong. We're not going to, I don't know a nicer way to say this, a different way to say this. We're not going to lead you astray and be like, hey, we want you to eat more food, because if we're saying we're going to refeed, if we're getting your metabolism working for you, things like that, and you're not comfortable with the process, this is a two-way street. We need to hear that you're not comfortable so that we can coach you, because this is what we do, as to why we might be doing the things we're doing. I'll never just tell you to do something. If you want the information as to why we're doing it, I don't hold those keys. That is information that we will give away to you, because at the end of the day, this is to empower you for your entire life. If I do my job right, you shouldn't be coaching with me forever, because the end goal is to be able to create sustainable habits where you get to live your life without having to hang out with us. Don't get me wrong. I love hanging out with all of you guys, But the idea here is to teach you the skills needed to be successful long term. So if you're not comfortable with what we're saying, express that to us so then we can explain maybe why we're doing it, and we might even have different ways to do it too. So
Yeah. I
this
think
this is that open communication that we always talk about. So
I'm just going to touch on the refeeding because you just mentioned that. Refeeding is one of those things that most people are uncomfortable with. When you come to coaches and you say, I want to lose weight, and where you say, we need to feed you more for 2 to 3 months before we can help you lose weight, it's terrifying because I wanted to lose weight yesterday and not 3 months from now. However, when your metabolism is greatly in the gutter, the only place for us to go to help you lose weight, to create a calorie deficit, is down. And morally, I will not take any client below 1,200 calories. It is not good for your metabolic health. It's not good for your bone health. It's not good for your overall immune system. Like, there's so many detrimental things that happen when we hang out below that region for a sustained amount of time, that to me, it's not worth the longevity in your life to lose weight to be able to eat that low. So for me, from a coach, I want you to diet on the most amount of calories possible to sustain your energy levels, to sustain just general happiness, to prevent binges and overconsumption and all of those kind of like regrets and all of those things that kind of tend to come in when we're dieting. If we can diet on more calories, then we have less of those rebellious moments, we'll call them, or even the self-defeating moments where you feel like you're failing, because there's no failure. Those are all learning opportunities. So when we take these learning opportunities, they help to guide us forward towards new changes and new thought processes. They also help us to unravel those pieces of our shadow of what's actually causing some underlying concern here.
yeah, I actually was listening to a podcast the other day. It was a Grant Cardone one. And I love this one thing he said, because he's like, if you are somebody who is success driven, you'll never fail a thing in your life. You'll learn. Right. And it's true, because if you are looking to create the life you want, the life that you deserve to have, there is no failure as long as you're willing to try and you're willing to learn and you're willing to grow from that. So fail, learn, grow, repeat.
And you got to remember, the biggest thing that Mike and I have for our goals, we don't want you guys dieting, whether that's to gain weight or to lose weight or whatever your goal is. We don't want you guys having to do that for the rest of your lives. So if we help to build sustainable habits, then we can maintain healthy weight patterns, healthy thought patterns, all of those things long term. So it's not this yo-yo effect. If you want a yo-yo dieting coach, you guys know that we are not those coaches, and that's totally okay if you want to go to one of those coaches. But if you want to be able to not have to be on the wagon, off the wagon, on the wagon, off the wagon all the time for the rest of your entirety of your life, then just let us help you in, it might take a couple months extra than what you thought, but yeah, I think that it's worth it.
Sustainability. It's a beautiful thing.
Sustainable. Okay. Anyways, on to the next tangent. Janice says, Rose, seeing my progress in my pictures, how much weight I've lost and how much more energy I have. I honestly teared up when I did her photo mock-up. It was pretty amazing. But I did promise her I wouldn't post it on social media. But was able to convince my husband to join me for 1 session a week for exercise. Exciting. Thorn, getting outside to walk the dogs because of the cold.
Can't change the weather. And I love that that's your only thorn, because you are kicking so much ass. Way to go, Jan.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think it's just the cold. I feel like maybe the ice that's out there might be deterring us for a little bit.
Get some cleats.
We all got acclimated to that nice spring.
Yeah.
And then winter came back and was like, just kidding.
Right?
Dina Lee says, Rose, I'm moving my body consistently. Yay, but I'm trying to eat better. Good. So we talked about what better might look like for each person's very different. Thorn, being sore from being active, and my knees are super sore as well. She went out and crushed some volleyball this week. I do know that. So hopefully the recovery is starting to set in and we're feeling a little bit better. Maybe some Epsom salt baths would be ideal, and some stretching for those knees.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I know that today or this week you got to see this client in person, so maybe you were able to address some things that might help with the knees too.
Yes, we did.
So when we look at, and I just want to throw this out there for anybody that's an online client, if you are experiencing pain in your knees, pain in your ankles, pain in your hips, pain in your shoulders, anything like that, I would love to bring all of you, any of you in to do movement assessments so that we can kind of address anything where we start to notice that there's these nagging pains wherever they might be, because a lot of times it does come back to, not all the time, but a lot of times it does come back to body movement patterns and how maybe our muscles compensate for the way that our body's been moving for years at a time. So
Now, if you can't make it here in person, that's cool. We
do
can do
that virtually.
assessments on Zoom.
Yeah.
So do reach out. We can definitely schedule a one-on-one for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Michelle, her rose was she went ice fishing, even though she was under the weather, she still went out. Her bud was trying to stay positive and heal up her ear problem because we've been dealing with a wicked
Infection.
ear infection lately. Yep. And Thorn was wishing she had more energy and her darn ear didn't ache so much one day at a time. So I know that you are getting the help you need for the ear. So I hope that comes along soon so that we can get you back out and kicking some butt here.
Totally. And rest. I mean, I feel like sometimes when we get hit hard with health problems, health concerns, I feel like it's a message that maybe we need to slow down and rest.
And I know for this client specifically, I know there might be a little bit of resistance there because you love moving, you love doing all the things, and I get that too. So just meeting your body with where you're at and making sure you do get that rest, because I always talk to you about how important rest is, and you always yell at me for making you take rest.
Randy says, Rose, lifting weights plus some yoga in there and all the warm-up stretches and the cool-down stretches. Bud, I can feel the abs coming along nicely with your workout.
Yeah. Boy, Randall.
Thorn, my weight trying to get below 200 pounds. I feel that I am shifting my weight from my fat reserves to my muscles. And that is a total normal thing that happens. We get that body recomp long before we see the actual scale move. And that's super normal, which is kind of cool because as we're gaining muscle, we're actually increasing our metabolic rate, increasing the amount of calories that we burn at rest, so that we do see the body fat begin to come off. It's just body fat is a slow process.
Yeah.
Especially when we've been at it for so long.
Yeah. And I know this is a client that we've talked to in person about this previously. And as we hit mass amounts of weight loss, which we definitely have, that makes it harder to see those pounds shed off as quickly. Now, again, still happens over time. We are still working towards that goal and we are still getting the body recomp. So I am confident that we will be well below your goal weight here soon.
One thing that I will suggest to anybody that's had a mass amount of weight loss or is in the process of losing a substantial amount of weight is looking at adding a weighted vest to any cardiovascular activities that you're doing. It does kind of trick the body to the idea that maybe you weigh a little bit more to increase the metabolism during that cardiovascular activity. It's not really a trick, but I feel like it's a trick of the trade.
Good little hack.
It's a little hack that we can kind of look at doing. So if you are in that ballpark, might be something to look at adding is a weighted vest or some sort of, sandbags to your body. And
then just remember too that fat loss specifically is through your breath, essentially. So whatever we're doing, making sure that we are working at a rate that increases that breath rate, because that's where we start to see that fat loss specifically.
Ashley says, Rose, eating has been good within 1,200 calories of my, within 1,200 of my calories, and I'm making good choices. Eating has been good within 1 to 200 calories of my calories and making good choices, which I'm proud of. That's why I'm like psychoanalyzing it. I was like, I said no 1,200 calories. I'm glad that her bud is my new workouts are still developing, and her thorn is shaving that extra 200 calories off. I know I probably should try harder, but I'm happy where my meals are at, and I don't see a lot of places I could cut it and still feel full. So this is where we start to talk about food volume and the more calorie dense items, right? So if we are feeling, or if we are looking to feel full, but we need to cut some calories down, then we're looking at
items that are going to just take up more space in our stomach, add more of that ischemic load to our stomach without adding the extra calories.
We have some high volume food resources if you want them. The other thing to look at is that weight loss is controlled starvation. And I know that it sucks. Nobody likes to feel hungry, especially like mentally. It's a mental burden more than it is anything else. As a physical burden, hunger comes in waves, right? If you wait long enough, the hunger will go away and you won't feel hungry.
But it's hard to wait that out sometimes.
Sometimes it's hard to wait it out. Sometimes it's hard mentally to handle the waiting of it out, or just the idea of feeling hungry can be quite stressful unto itself. So high volume foods can be helpful, or shifting away from any kind of snacking and just focusing on 3 main meals a day can be very helpful. Also looking at shifting meal timing so that maybe we don't eat when we first wake up, maybe we eat a little bit later in the morning. And that can also begin to create shorter distances between meals. There's a couple things that we can look at doing there. 200 calories is the difference of, 2 apples, right? Maybe that 200 calories means that I'm not going to have, my half cup of rice at dinner, but maybe instead I'm going to have, a cup of broccoli
3 cups of
and well, yeah, but I mean, like, I don't like salad, so I'm like a cup of broccoli and then maybe some like cauliflower or something like that, where it does have a lot more volume, but your calories are half. So there's a couple things that we can look at doing there. But I don't want to give you guys too much on that. Unless you guys want actual resources, please do reach out for the high volume foods.
Yeah. The other thing that I did want to touch on this, just because of the way it was written there, it said, I know I probably should try harder, but I'm happy where my meals are at, and I don't see a lot of places I could still cut it and feel full. So when we start to get into that, maybe that mindset of, we're starting to see the results we want, we're starting to kind of find, again, a bit of complacency with it, where we're like, I'm actually happy with where I'm at. So then my question to anybody that kind of hits that point is, have we reached the goal that you wanted to reach? And if the answer is yes, phenomenal, right? We're getting where we want. We're starting to see that. If we're not quite there yet and we don't want to change the food up, what else could we do to create that calorie deficit?
Are you willing to jump on the treadmill? What else are you willing
It's
to do?
exactly that, right? So are we willing to push a little bit harder in the gym? Maybe we could start looking at adding more resistance to our training.
Adding a fourth set.
Maybe we could, add a 4th set. Maybe we jump, like Kayla was saying, jump on the treadmill, jump on a bike, whatever that is, to create more of that deficit without having to sacrifice the calories. Because yes, removing calories is a great way to do it, but the other way to do it is expending those calories as well. Now, I'm not saying you can outwork a bad diet. I would never say that. But if we're already eating fairly healthy and our diet is pretty close to on point and we're just looking for that extra little bit, there are ways that we can do that, that are exercise induced. So if that is somewhere where you're at and you're comfortable and you're willing to put that extra time in, the extra effort in, because it is extra effort, then we can look at that too. So just want to toss that out there.
100%. And knowing that where I'm happy at and maybe what I visualize my goal at, maybe they're 2 different places.
Yeah. So getting clear with that too.
Sometimes we have a very clear idea on visually what I want to look like, but I'm really sitting in a place mentally where I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying the processes. I'm enjoying how my clothes feel. Like it's more of a feeling versus a
hard set
a
number,
visual or a number or whatever. Lean into that feeling. As much as I want you to hit that visual goal, because that was where we were headed, I think that life is about enjoying it and not necessarily feeling like I have to meet a certain thing in order to be happy, to feel happy, to find that enjoyment. So being very honest with yourself is, can I find enjoyment with where I'm at right now? Because what I hear from a lot of people is, I look back at pictures of myself 10 years ago and I wonder why I wasn't happy with myself back then, because I look back and I go, oh, wow, I was X, Y, and Z back then. It's always hindsight's 2020. So if you can sit in that enjoyment, that's what I always preach to people. I had somebody reach out to me the other day. Oh, I'm not where I'm at. Process is taking longer than I thought. And I just simply said back, but look at all the things that you've gotten to enjoy, the vacations, the time out with your family. Like, at what point is hitting a number on the scale worth the sacrificing all of these enjoying factors in your life?
Mhm.
So I just want to put that food for thought out there is, what are you willing to sacrifice to see that visual image? And if you're not willing to sacrifice it, then maybe it's time to reframe what that goal is or that visual image is.
Yeah. My goal now is just to be healthy and have a body that I can live and enjoy this life in, right? Where I don't want to be is in pain. Where I don't want to be is in a place where I don't have the strength to do the things that I enjoy doing. I love climbing mountains. I love going biking for hours. I love doing all these active things. So my body and my goals have to match those things. Does that mean I have to be this perfect specimen, like bodybuilder on stage all the time? Not a chance. It's not feasible to stay in that realm all the time. Do I want to get back on stage and have fun out there because that is fun to me? 100% I do, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my happiness and well-being now to get there at this point, right? So that's why I'm not doing the May show like we had originally thought we were going to be doing, because right now I'm just finding that homeostasis. I'm finding my base level again, because there's been changes in my life, and that's okay. So again, getting very clear with what I'm willing to do and where I'm at currently was pivotal for myself. So just wanted to throw that out there for everybody.
Well, and one thing I had to do is I was looking back at, old competition photos and I was doing a little bit of self-comparison. Oh, I wish I was back there. And I had to switch my thought process to, instead of wishing I was back there, looking at those pictures and being proud of what I was able to accomplish. And in that space of being proud of what I was able to accomplish, I was then able to be very realistic with myself around, what am I willing, what is the effort I'm willing to put forth if that is something I want to accomplish again? And do I want to have to make all of those sacrifices in order to hit that again? And the answer is eventually, yes, I do. But right now, I'm really enjoying where I'm at, and I'm so proud of all the things that I've accomplished.
Yeah.
So being proud of yourself and the accomplishments in the process is huge.
Mhm.
Do you want to read it, or do you want me to?
Sure. So next we have Christine. Christine's rose is meals are all mapped out and played out, which has made this week much easier. Hell yeah. Love the meal prep. Awesome job.
Yeah.
The bud is not as sore as I was last week from squats.
Woo.
We just got to squat more weight, Christine. No, I'm just kidding. And then the thorn is stress. But she's breathing through it and forgetting about it before bed so I can sleep. I love that. So this is something I know that
it was the first one we touched on.
Something we touched on, but this is also something that came up previously with this exact client when we've trained with her before, where stress would creep in and then it was affecting the sleep patterns. So I love that you're breathing through it. I love that you're working on kind of letting that go before bed, because that's something that we put a lot of effort into before, and it sounds like it's serving you well. So that's awesome. Super proud of you.
Way to go. Willow says her rose, I'm moving again. I did see some workouts come in from her too,
yeah.
which means her energy levels are up. But I'm solidifying a new routine. Wonderful. Thorn, just as I settle, everything changes. So I think working around the changes and being okay in them was my biggest struggle. Yes. We get acclimated to our way of doing things and our routine. And when life throws us a curveball, it's, oh, how do I navigate this in a new routine? I want to encourage you to change your wording around it. So you said, I feel like this was my biggest struggle, but what if it was not a struggle? Like, struggle really implies, thank you, I'm impaled.
Struggle has been impaled.
No, it implies the idea that that there's some suffering taking place here. But what if it was like it was my biggest navigation piece, where I'm really learning to navigate around or through it? Because that really does come from more of an empowering standpoint versus a disempowering standpoint. And just remembering how much power our words have for us. And so looking at, how do I empower myself through this? So, life is changing. I'm working through some changes and I'm learning to navigate through them this week. that really does allow us to go, doors might be opening, things might be working towards what I need them to.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of that. And then the only thing I want to add to that is we get to choose this life. Everything that comes into our lives, your life, my life, Kayla's life, everybody's individual lives, it's a choice what we allow into it, right? It doesn't seem like it all the time because sometimes we feel like things are outside of our realm of control. But if it's something that is directly related to you, if it's something that you are choosing, then it is part of your life. It's part of your journey. So when I see the word biggest struggle, the way that my mind reframes that, because this is how it reframes for myself, is this is an opportunity for growth. It doesn't always seem like it in the moment. I'm going to use again our example of we just opened this spin studio. Kayla was teaching 15 classes a week. I was teaching 13, 14 classes a week when we started. Yes, it was a struggle, right? That's hard to go from no cardio to all the cardio. It was hard as hell. But the way that I got through that was telling myself that this was an opportunity for growth for myself. This was something that I haven't got to do before. It's going to be hard as hell. There was no sugarcoating that. There was no making it easier by a thought process. But what did change that with the thought process was this is an opportunity for growth for myself. I've been telling myself all this time that I want to get back into cardio. I want to be back into that athletic realm that I loved being in for so many years. So when I saw this opportunity to do all of the cardio, I was like, this is an opportunity for growth. I measured my legs before we started this, and I was like, okay, let's see how big we can grow these suckers by eating and spinning. Well, my legs have grown over an inch. And I'm like, there's an opportunity for growth. So again, that reframing of whatever this struggle is, you will get through this. You've got through every struggle you've ever been through in your life up to this day today. And that goes for everybody that's listening to this call right now. You have overcome everything that has ever been put in your way, and you have grown and changed from it. So look at your struggles as opportunities for growth, because that is exactly what they are, whether you realize it or not in the moment. And it is hard to see it in the moment sometimes because we are in that moment. It is raw, it is real. But seeing it as that at the end of the day is a beautiful way to change that.
I love it. Amazing. Megan says, her rose, getting my workouts in, prioritizing myself.
Hell yes.
Bud, getting more comfortable at the gym, feeling more confident working out. I love it. Just so you guys know, Megan has a gym in her house, like she has a whole workout space, but it wasn't happening. And so we've been working on just going to a physical location, and because she also works from home, so not really leaving the house a lot outside of like family duties and groceries and those kinds of things. And that has been a game changer in just building habit. It's not about doing the perfect workout or anything. It's about building habit. And so she's been doing phenomenal with that. So way to go.
Yeah.
Thorn, PMS, and snacking, definitely reoccurring Thorn. I mean, since the day we started working together, PMS and snacking.
So can I offer something?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm just going to offer this up. If you know that during that week you are going to be snacking, because this is just kind of how it always happens, but we're not going off the rails, we're just having some extra snacks. Maybe we plan around that. We've talked about calories not being this linear thing, that they are cyclical. You can have the ebbs and flows within your calories. So maybe we plan around that. Maybe we reduce calories a little bit coming into that week, and we reduce calories a bit coming out of that week, so that when we have that week where we might be reaching for the odd extra chocolate, salty snack, whatever it is, maybe that's accounted for by having slightly lower calories before and after.
Or maybe we just choose that's a week at maintenance. There's a lot of really cool research around a 2-in-1 ratio where you're 2 weeks of dieting, 1 week off.
Breaks, yeah.
So we could do 3 weeks of dieting and 1 week off, or, like there's lots of things that we can look at.
Diet breaks are a real thing. Yeah.
So, I mean, rather than, I think what you resist persists, and that keeps coming to mind. That's been a theme this week with a lot of conversations that I've had. So rather than resisting it where, oh, I gave in and now I feel like I've totally gone off the rails, like, why don't we just lean into it and leverage it as a superpower, right? When we start to look at these things that we feel disempowered around, how do we empower ourselves through those? where is a way that we can leverage it to actually make it do good versus it feeling like I failed or I'm not doing it correctly. So looking at it as a superpower, maybe as a superpower, this is my body telling me that I need a week off focusing on food, and maybe I spend the week focusing on my workouts, or another one thing that I could actually focus on navigating.
Yeah. And again, I'm not saying this is the fix all for anything. And I'm not saying, again, like I said earlier, you cannot outwork a bad diet, but maybe during that week we increase our activity level. Maybe we just try and, have a little bit of an extra calorie burn to help with that. I'm not saying, yeah, you can eat 6 tubs of ice cream, and if you go for a walk for 30 minutes, if you're fucking all good. That's not how it works either. But what I am saying is maybe we just increase that the awareness around our movement for that week, and just try and, stay a little bit more active than we normally would.
The other thing too is that I know one of her cravings is a salty craving. And I'm just sharing this, even though she already knows this. So I'm just sharing this for everybody else's sake. But there's a lot of really cool research around salty cravings and a lack of water intake, especially PMS symptoms. And meaning that maybe you normally consume 2 liters of water a day, but maybe when you're PMSing, your body needs 3. So there's actually like really interesting research around the increase in water consumption and craving those salty snacks to try and balance that water.
Yeah.
So something to look at.
Awesome. Okay. And the last one that we have for today is from Chris. Rose, workouts are feeling great. Hell yeah, they are. They're looking great too. Love it. Bud is proper sleep. Hell yes. I will always celebrate proper sleep, because when that starts to fall into alignment in our lives, a lot of things can start to, fall into alignment with it.
Recovery.
100%. I'm just throwing this out there because most of our clientele are over that age of 20, 21. So as we age, recovery becomes more and more important. Don't get me wrong, for all of my young athletes that might be watching this, recovery, we always talk about that too, is super important. But typically when we're younger, we sleep easier because stress levels are lower, right? Those external stress factors aren't nearly as high as when we have a household to provide for, when we have our daily job that we have to go to every day to be able to support our entire lives. Yes, those stress levels are higher. So recovery becomes that key thing. And if you don't get proper recovery, you will not get proper muscle attenuation either. So that means those muscular gains are harder to come by when we are not getting enough recovery. So, and recovery doesn't have to just be sleep, but it is the primary way that our body recovers, is when we are in that deep sleep. So love that proper sleep is coming along. And then the Thorn is still trying to eat enough. Not sure why this is such a struggle lately. That is something that is real. When we have a fair amount of calories, like I will say, Chris is eating quite a bit of food. So when we have those higher calorie clients where we're trying to refeed and we're getting that metabolism
with
up,
low
working.
volume foods.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to eat the food that is going to maybe not make us feel stupid full, but it's going to bring those calories up rapidly. So those, again, we have resources for this, Chris. So we can definitely, if you want some help with that, reach out 100%. What I love to say, nuts are your best friend. Like you can eat, for me, when I had to boost my calories with this spin studio, we bought a giant thing of mixed nuts and a giant thing of cashews. So, I mean, a handful of mine,
seeds and all the things.
just for me, what I do, a handful of nuts, that's 300 calories, right? So I'm like, oh, there's 300. Oh, there's 600. And it just, calories go up fairly quickly. Healthy fats, proteins, and a bit of carbohydrates mixed in there too, right? So it's, nuts are your best friend. If you want to not feel stupid full, but be able to get those calories in, nuts are your best friend.
Yeah, 100%. And it might not fit necessarily in a macro ratio, but remember, we're going for maintenance at this point.
Progress over perfection, right? Yeah. So again, if you are somebody that struggles hitting your macros, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Obviously, we're not going to say, yep, you can just eat all protein, go on the carnivore diet. Like there's so much benefit to carbohydrates. There's so much benefit to healthy fats that I would never say you shouldn't have any of these, because at the end of the day, having a well-rounded diet is going to serve you long-term. It's not going to be one of those short-term fad diets that gets you results in the meantime, but then as soon as you go off of it, we lose those, right? So sustainable eating habits.
Nuts, seeds, dried fruit, those kinds of things are easy to add to oatmeal, easy to eat on their own, easy to add to protein shakes. There's lots of different things that we can add them to greatly increase calories without feeling extra full. So if you want some resources on low volume foods because you're just struggling to get your calories in, or you are trying to gain weight and you just need more calories than what than where we're at, please do reach out to us. We are happy to provide those resources as well. And I guess thank you guys all for sending in your rosebud thorns this week. I hope that you are enjoying us talking to you via Zoom recording versus it being in our online format. And we do hope to get back to that online format eventually as life twists and turns here.
Yeah. Have an awesome rest of your day, guys.
Take care.
See you next week.